Hello, how are you? My name is Gemma and welcome to my Devon Diary. Just over a year ago, my husband and I threw out everything we knew and took a massive gamble in moving our lives completely across the country. We left careers, jobs we loved, friends, family, our entire lives behind, bought a house that we hadn't even seen and started building what we hope to be our dream family life here in the beautiful West Country in England. A year on, we found our feet, got settled in, and we're looking forward to building our dream family life together. And I want to take you along for the journey, showing all the things I make, bake, create, and exploring all that Devon has to offer. Hello, how are you? Welcome or welcome back. As I've said, my name's Gemma. I hope you are well. I hope September is treating you nicely. Welcome to my first Devon Diary episode. It's very exciting. I'm no stranger to making videos. If you've been here for a while, you'll know I've had this YouTube channel for about 6 years and it's been through various iterations, but this is a new phase, a new chapter. So if you've never been here before, it's quite an exciting time for you to join. So the Devon Diary, it's literally going to be a video journal of us building our lives here. I've already shared how I'm preparing for autumn this year in my Get Ready for Autumn With Me video. And now I'm going to be sharing all the things I've been making in the past couple of weeks and giving you a general sort of update as well. In the last week of August, I thought I'd spend that week before I went back to work and started my new job, finishing projects off and getting things done and out of the way so I could move into the new season and just really embrace all the making motivation I had for all these new exciting projects. Needless to say, it didn't necessarily go as planned, and rather than finishing lots of projects and making a dent, I seem to have acquired 3 new blankets. So the week started really well. I pulled out all my existing works in progress and I made a list of all the things that I still had on the needles or hooks and when I would like them done by, and organised them into an order of priority so that I could start working through them methodically and get these things off of the needles and hooks. And part of the reason is I'm not bothered about having lots and lots of works in progress. That doesn't bother me at all. I'm kind of a creative butterfly. You flit from creative flower to creative flower and sample all the delights that each one has to offer. And I've said before that I view my list of works in progress as kind of like a menu. You wouldn't eat the same thing every night for a week. I mean, some people do, but I personally wouldn't. I like a bit of variety. In one night you might fancy lasagna, another night you might fancy a Chinese, and on a Sunday you might just want a roast. And it's kind of like that with my making. So it's never bothered me having lots of different works in progress, but the thing that had started to bother me was wanting to embark on all these new exciting projects in September, and therefore these things not getting finished, but also some of them had been for other people and I didn't, it just felt a little bit heavy. It felt like they were weighing me down a bit, which is never how I want to feel about my making. And I was off to a great start. I spent some time working on a granny square sweater by Hanjan Crochet, which was a sample for the Yarn Dispensary, the shop I used to run. I'm using West Yorkshire Spinners Elements DK, which is a lovely blend of merino wool and tencel. Tencel is a trademark name, also goes by lyocell, and essentially it's crushed wood pulp, which makes it a really interesting fibre. It's really strong. It's got the sheen and drape of silk, the strength of nylon, but it's natural and eco-friendly and sustainable. It's quite a heavy fibre, so you don't get as much meterage per 100 grams as you would in a pure wool or even an acrylic blend. For example, my fingering weight yarn that I used to dye was 100 grams, but only 333 meters. Whereas your typical 4-ply fingering weight yarn, you'd get between 400 and 425, sometimes 430 meters. So that is quite a difference. And it's just down to the weight of the fiber because the crushed wood pulp is so heavy. Anyway, I'd picked 4 different colors of elements to work this sample up in, and knowing how speedy I am with granny squares, I figured this should be a really easy one to finish up. Unfortunately, I ran out of yarn. I even tried being stubborn and finished the colours. I can't, because it's one colour per round. I got as far as I could with the colour I ran out of, and then I moved on to the next colour and went up to that point again and the next colour, and I just could not go any further. You would have thought I'd done the sensible thing and moved on to my next work in progress. Unfortunately, it doesn't quite work like that. I thought to myself, I must have another ball of this yarn somewhere. I've got to. And so I went rummaging through all my stash drawers to find this other ball of yarn, and I didn't find that, but what I did find was a lot of mini skeins. And as I'm going through them, I'm thinking, it'd be really nice to use these up. And I went through them and I thought, oh, these ones are really nice and bright. That would make a nice blanket. And these ones are kind of jewel tone. That would be a nice blanket. Oh, so I could have a blanket for me and a blanket for Alan, and we'd be all cozy this winter. What a great idea. And then as I was going through them, so I started my neon blanket, what is now my neon blanket, and really enjoyed it. And it was amazing how much I got done in such a short time. And then when I was rummaging through to have another look for this missing yarn for the granny square jumper, I suddenly came across a lot more minis. Here is the bag in question. They weren't all together in a bag. I've done some sorting out, but all of these, and we're talking about 500 grams of yarn here, 500 grams of 4-ply yarn, and so that's not an insignificant amount. Are kind of pastel-y colours, and I didn't want them to go in my neon blanket. I thought they'd just get completely lost. As you can see here, the neon blanket is a lot bigger than in the picture I just shared. It's really quite bright, and I just felt that these beautiful pastels would get lost completely in there. And if you look, some of these, this is dyed by elderflower stitches, and they're just so beautiful and delicate, and I'll lay them out and share some b-roll. I felt they deserved to be on their own where they could really shine. So I ended up with siphoning off all the pastel-y ones for this blanket. I then sorted out all the bright colours and went kind of just neon and bright and out there for this blanket. And you can see the other colours in the box there. But then when I was looking at the dark colours, jewel tones, I noticed actually as I also had an awful lot of kind of greeny, browny, earthy colours, which is much more my husband than greys and pops of jewel tone. Also, I pulled out a lot of the jewel tones to put in my now ridiculously bright neon blanket. So I ended up with this one. So I've gone from using up all my minis in a devil may care, not fussed too much about the order or yarn colour management, to having organised 3 different blankets worth of yarn. You can see all those beautiful blues and browns in there. So having 3 blankets worth of yarn and casting on 2. So rather than getting rid of projects, I somehow have ended up with 3 blankets. I tell you what though, it's nothing so satisfying as having a granny square on the go. I always used to have a granny square blanket that I could just reach into my basket and work on in the evening, and it's really soothing. It's the same as knitting a sock for me, that simple soothing process of going round and round. So then I thought, well, I've got some bright colours and I'll do one for Robin, but the yarns are all a mystery, and so they're not necessarily all machine washable, so really that needs to be something different as well. So I've ended up in a right pickle. And then I thought, oh, but that's fine, because if I use all the scraps from anything that's ever been knit for Robin, because they're all machine washable, because they were done until he was, from birth to now, then it'll be machine washable and it will be DK or Aran weight, so therefore it will be done quicker. Brilliant. So there's a blanket for Robin. So we've now got an unfinished granny square jumper, a blanket for me, a blanket for my husband, a mystery pastel blanket, which might be for me, the neon one might be for guests, who knows, and a blanket for Robin in waiting. Okay, all right, you're using up your minis, I hear you say. You're using up the stash. This is great. This is progress. And they're blankets. They're super practical. You're going to be really warm for winter because we need to keep the heating down this year. It's got so expensive, hasn't it? It's utterly bonkers. Well, you say that, but in between, literally the next day, deciding I was going to use my leftovers from Robin's jumpers for a blanket for Robin, and the next evening when I went to a knit night at that Crafty Stitch, I had managed to forget that I was going to be using these leftovers for a blanket for my son, and instead cast on this. So this is my son's blanket. As you can see, it is not a blanket, it is a sweater. And you're going to be cheering or groaning here, I know. It's a flax. Yeah. I've used the leftovers of most of the flaxes I've ever knit for my son. So the flax is a pattern by Tin Canics. It's a free pattern. You can find it online. You can find it on Ravelry, on the Tin Canics website. There's even an app for that. It comes in 3 weights. So it comes in double knitting weight, fingering, or you might know it's 4-ply, and worsted or Aran weight, and this is the worsted or Aran weight one. And I have knit 5 flax sweaters already for my son out of this Rowan pure wool worsted, but I couldn't find the dark blue when I started it, so we've just gone with this. And I cast on, my son's grown out of a lot of his sweaters, so I thought, well, I need to do a new one. So I'll use all the leftovers. So I've knit a lot of my hair into this. Does that happen to you? Does anyone else knit their hair into their work? I don't do it in baking, that's something. That's, I hope. So yeah, so I've used the leftovers to do the 2 to 4 year old size. I have done it a lot longer than the pattern calls for because my son is long and I don't like him getting a cold back. And I've just cast off the rib last night. I did most of this in a day. So you know when I'm supposed to be finishing these projects off, and instead I've started 2 blankets so far and a sweater. I really like it. I've done 10 rounds for each stripe. I'm going to end up not having enough green to do a second stripe on the sleeves, which is a bit of a shame. I could unravel his mittens that I knit him last year that he's refusing point blank to wear, and that might give me another stripe on the sleeves just about. But yeah, so that's going to be ready for autumn winter, and I think it's really super cute. I've never done anything like this before, a stripy jumper. Let me show you the inside so you can see. I've carried the yarn as I've joined the colours. I've actually carried it with me, so I have fewer ends to weave in, so you can see where the red's been carried and the blue's been carried, where they've joined in. And when I joined in the green, I carried the yellow for the first couple of inches, so that that's all almost sewn in for me. So I've just put the sleeves back on the needles, ready to do the first sleeve, so hopefully that will be done soon. I also haven't finished my gnome, which was for the Imagine Landscapes knit along. There's a fab book called Gnomes of Grimblewood by Imagine Landscapes. She designs lots of things, but she's really well known for her gnomes, and there's a gnome along every year. Well, Search Press are publishing her first book, and as such there was a make along to go with it. And I was meant to finish that gnome by the time I spoke to you, but I used my needles that I was knitting the gnome on to cast on another sock. So when I was doing my hand washing last week for Get Ready With Me for Autumn, I was washing our socks and I realised that my husband does not have enough hand knit socks. And I realised this because he clearly worn them to death, the ones that he did have. So I thought I'd best cast on another one. And we actually went to the cinema to see Deadpool and Wolverine for our anniversary, and I had needed something plain vanilla that I could cast on and take with me to the cinema. So this was my cinema knitting. It's West Yorkshire Spinners Kingfisher. It's nothing better than a woolly sock. You don't get sweaty feet, they keep you warm, you don't get sweaty. I'm trying to find the mistake. I made a mistake somewhere in here. Ah, there it is. If you look really carefully, you might be able to see, I don't know if you can actually, there's a little hole right there. And what I'd done is I'd picked up the bar between stitches when we were in the cinema and it was dark, so I couldn't see what I was doing. So I created an extra stitch and I'd gone quite a way past it. And I said to my husband, actually, do you know what? I'm not going to pull that out because that is the hole that happened when we went to the cinema for our anniversary. That's a memory. That's a memory knit into this sock. So my needles were otherwise engaged in knitting his kingfisher socks. Now he actually requested the kingfisher colourway, so I'm really happy to do that for him. The other sock I've got on the needles that I don't have handy to show you, I'm not entirely sure what I've done with it, is a Christmas sock for my son. So I'm knitting us all new socks for Christmas Eve out of Vintage Tinsel by West Yorkshire Spinners. My husband's I did with licorice for the heel, toe and cuff, which is black. And my son's I'm using a little kind of turquoise mini skein to do the toe and cuff, to hopefully make this yarn go around all three of us. So I shall report back on that. There's not really been much baking or gardening this week. I have done some sewing, not that I've got any images of it to show you. I've made a circle time calendar for a circle time display for preschool. So I took some navy blue fabric that I had already. I haven't lined it or anything, I've just kept it really simple in case it wasn't used or wasn't appropriate. And some really pretty balloon fabric, and I made pockets at the front, used Velcro dots, and then the children can come up and they can pick the weather it is today and stick the weather on the board. I've not done any headings or titles or grids on it because I find that a lot of these circle time mats are too busy and too prescriptive, whereas this is visually very clear, very easy for the children to engage with, and it means it can be used for other things as well. So that's it really for sewing and knitting and crochet. It's just all the granny squares at the moment. We've had a few adventures just this morning. It's my day off, and so it's a Mummy Robin day. And so we went to the park and we did some conkering. So we've got our very first conkering session. I need to find out what I can do with conkers actually. I'm sure there's something other than just scaring off spiders. But yeah. So that's it. That's what I've been up to making wise for the last week and a bit. I have finished 0 things and cast on 4 things. I've not come out well from this at all. What are you making at the moment? Have you started on your Christmas gifts? Are you thinking about blankets and things to keep you cozy this winter? Are you enjoying the last of the late summer sunshine as we are today? Do let me know how your September is going below, and I will see you next time. Take care. Bye.